I am recording. And all right, here we go. So we are getting into the wonderful wide world of JavaScript. Some of you already know a little bit of this, but it was not at all a requirement in the course. So don't worry if you don't. We are going to be learning it from the ground up. So starting with something as simple as a variable. If you come from a different programming language, you know what a variable is. A variable is just like in something, like algebra, it's something that holds something. So the way to declare a variable is by saying let, and then you can say my variable, so or my num, or whatever. We can say foo, we can say Preston, whatever. We can name it something. In this case, we're just going to say my num, and then I'm just going to give it a value. So to the left is the variable name. To the right is the value that we are dropping inside that variable. And from there, we can, since we have said let, we can now actually start editing that variable. So with numbers, we can do all sorts of mathy things that you would think you should be able to do. Something like my num equals my num. This would do nothing except if we add something to it. My num equals my num plus 1. And let's see if I can get this started here. Running. And okay, can we see this right here? So what we have done is console log. So console log is something that's extremely useful in JavaScript. It takes what you are working with inside those parentheses here, and then it's going to print it to the console. This is my console here let's see if I can. So in a browser, in the dev console here, we can actually console log something here. So console log hello gives us hello. So this is another version of a console. This is the one that you'll probably be working with the most in the beginning stages, and then later on when working with React and things like that. That is the console. So let's move that.
Preston?
Yeah.
Sorry, quick question. The language I'm used to, Java, you have to say what type of variable, like integer, string. You don't have to do that in JavaScript?
Very good question.
It just figures it out?
Yeah, and that goes right into our next concept here, which is data types. So in JavaScript, so in some languages, you have to say something like int my num equals 0. And this won't work in JavaScript. It will work in something called TypeScript, which is a strongly typed language version of JavaScript. But in many programming languages, yes, you have to declare what type of variable it is, if it's a number, if it's a string, if it's a hash, if it's an array. But in JavaScript, you don't have to, which is part of the beauty of JavaScript. And what makes it easy to start learning very quickly is you don't have to deal with certain errors that might come up with a strongly typed language. There are some caveats to that, and some programmers don't like the fact that it doesn't have strong types. But in this case, we could just say my num equals Preston. And I'm kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. But what do we all think is going to be printed down here? Before it was printing 1. What do we think is going to be printing down here? Anybody have any guesses?
Preston.
Preston 1.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Preston 1.
Preston.
Yeah, well, we'll look at that too. So Preston is the one that will be logged after 1. So we see that 1 is logged here, and then we reassign that variable to Preston, and now we are logging out what that variable is, which is Preston. So Yes. So, sorry, question?
Just really quickly. So you said let my num, but I thought that when you reassign variables, you have to use var, var, not let.
So,
Does JavaScript let you get away with it?
so in 2015, ES6 came out, which is a new version of JavaScript. And the whole world thought that var was a bit confusing, which it is sometimes. So there are technically 3 ways that you can declare variables in JavaScript. There is let let something be this. And then there is const, my const, let this never change. And there is var. This is confusing. There are a few reasons why var gets confusing. The reasons why are unbeknownst to us at this point because we haven't learned those parts of JavaScript yet, so we won't really get into it. Basically, don't use var for the foreseeable future, unless you are dealing with a code base at a company where they tell you that you have to use var, or if it makes sense that like, for now, let's just not get too much into it. We can look into that a little bit more. But basically, let's use var, let and const. So let and const are different, but that's a very good question, Sean. And we can maybe go over that more one-on-one if you're curious further as to what the differences are. But the basic difference between let and const is that let, as one might assume, lets you reassign it. Const is constant, meaning it cannot be reassigned. So what if we do something like this? Anybody have any guesses what will happen if I run this code? You have kind of a like a precursor to what's going to happen because you have red squigglies. What's that?
It shouldn't change, right?
Right.
It should still be let this never change.
But typically, when we get red squigglies in an editor, that means that there is a problem. So if we run this code, oh, I didn't save it. That's why. If we run this code, we get this big old error stack, and it says assignment to constant variable. So that means we can't reassign that variable. Your code won't even run. It will run up until that point, and then it just stops. It doesn't do anything after that. We can say console, oops, nope. And unfortunately, in this case, because we made an error here, Brian will not be cool today. Because it goes up to here and then it just doesn't do anything after that. So that was just a mean example. But let's see. So we have let and we have const. And then we reassign a variable. We can do something like adding numbers together. We can do that a little bit more later. And we can actually add stuff to a string. It's kind of crazy. So let's get rid of this. So we can add things to a string. So let's just do this. So if we have a name, how would we add a last name to it? We can say my name equals my name plus, and then we give it another quote here, a space, and then the word. What's gonna happen with my name now? Anybody have any guesses? What will my name be?
Preston Wallace.
Yes, it's all going to be one variable. It's going to, and then it's going to be the word Preston and the word Wallace, all with a space in between. So as you can see, numbers are declared just by giving it the number. A string is declared by giving it either a single quote or a double quote. People get up in arms about which one you should use. It really doesn't matter. Single quote or double quote is fine. So you can say, let new double quote, never use variable names that are really long. My cat is fun. And we can run, oh, we're not going to see anything here because we're not console logging it. So, so yeah, we can assign them with single quotes, double quotes, whatever. And that is that. So we can also do one more thing. I just wanted to show you this. If we give something a quote and then we put a number in there, it will appear at this point that we are doing nothing different from doing this. These two are both going to look like the same thing. Let me do that. So these two are going to both look like the same thing in the console, but they're not actually the same thing. What's the difference between these two things? Anybody have any guesses?
One's a string.
Yep.
Yes, so this one is a string, this one's a number. Even though this one has a number in it, it is still a string because we put it in quotes. So we told JavaScript, this should be a string. A couple of notes also to think about for variables. Never start a variable with a number. JavaScript doesn't like it. Can't do that. You can end it with a number or put a number in the middle. But in any case, yes. So those are a couple of that's one rule to think about when creating variables in JavaScript. Also, JavaScript in general, the convention, the usual way that we do things is called Camelcase. So we're going to say start with lowercase and then like this, or my cats. Let's say that. So we're going to start with lowercase, and then with every new word, we just give it a capital letter as the first letter. Other programming languages prefer things like snake case and stuff like that. In JavaScript, it's called Camelcase, and that's the way we create variables. That's convention. It works any way you do it, so don't worry about it. In general, definitely don't do that, because then people start thinking other things about it that we don't want to get into. Just stick with the convention of Camelcase when declaring a variable. Okay, so any questions about what we have done so far? Let versus const, reassigning variables, adding stuff to variables, stuff like that. No, okay. So then we have these data types, and we have this really cool thing that we call the type of. Let's see, where should I put it? Down, string type, string, we'll just put it down here. Okay, so we have the type of. So let's grab one of these variables here, my num2, or let's just create a new one. Seven, I like 7. Okay, a new num. So we have a new number. It's holding 7 in it, a new variable with a 7 in it, and then we're going to use the type of. Console log, and then we're going to say type of, and then we're going to give it a space, and then we're going to give it the variable. And what this does is it prints out the type of variable it is. So we have strings, we have numbers, we're going to get into arrays. What is this one? What is this going to print out? Anybody know?
Number.
Right, so it prints out number. It prints out the string number. So if we looked at this in the dev console, I think, no, it doesn't really show us. But it actually has the string, the little quotes around it. So it is actually printing out the string number. So it's actually kind of fun. You can start doing really fun things. No, not that. Type of a new num. So if this prints out a string that has number, what happens if I put type of space and then what we just had before? What's going to be printed out here?
It'll print the string.
Yes, the string, exactly. So yes, string is exactly correct. Anybody have any questions about what just happened there? All right. So if we do,
Does that only work with constant, or would if you put let a new num, would that still create the same thing?
let's try it out. No, it works both ways. You can use let, you can use const. It just prints out the type of the variable that is currently held in that variable. But let's do something even more fun. A new num equals the string 8. So what is now going to be logged out? Any guesses?
String and string.
Yes. So yes, a string with the value of string. Exactly. So if we take this one out, just so that we get rid of the confusingness. So yeah, first we log out its type. It's a number because we held the number in it. We clobbered it, reassigned it to this string with the number 8 in it. And then we console logged its type, and that is a string. So that is reassigning, looking at the type, and yes, it works with const and let and everything. So we can do a couple things with numbers. It's kind of fun, just like a calculator. You can just say, let's get rid of this. Okay, just like a calculator, you can say a new num equals a new num plus 1. What is a new num going to be now? Anybody?
8.
Yes, 8, exactly. So we are now getting, oh, I didn't save it. Always save your code. That's the source of many bugs. Okay, so it is now going to be 8 because we incremented it. Another way to increment, here, let's title this. So that's one way to increment something, just add 1 to it. Or you can say a new num plus equals 1. That is going to do the exact same thing. It just says a new num equals this plus 1. Or we can say something even faster, a new num plus plus. And this, so anybody have any guesses as to what is now going to be logged out?
9, 10.
Yeah, 10. We did 2 of them. So yeah, no, you got it. Yeah, exactly. It's going to be 10. So this is kind of a funny thing. I'm sure that people here have heard about the programming language C++, right? So the programming language C++ is kind of like the name itself is almost a programmer joke, right? It's like, this is C, but it's the next version. This is like the cool C. So it's C++, which is really fun. So anyway, that's where plus plus comes from in C++. And then, okay, so we have a few different operators. We can say, we now have 10. So new num, we can say times equals, or we can just say equals a new num times 5. So what's going to be logged out now?
35?
50.
50, right, exactly. So we're just taking 10, multiplying it by 5. It's going to be 50. Great. And then we can divide, and all of the plus equals, the times, everything except for division. I don't know about if that works or not. But all of the tricks that we just used, those equals, whatever, plus something, the plus equals, and the plus plus, all of those work with the other operators as well. So you can just say a new num divided equals 10. So we had 50, and then we're doing this. What are we going to come up with now?
5?
Yep, 5, exactly. So yeah, you can see how we can just use all of these operators pretty much the same way. You can do minus, minus, and let's do that real quick. Don't want to spend too much time on this. Get rid of all of our time. What's going to happen here? We had 5, then we did minus, minus. What's going to happen? It's going to be 4, because we just took away 1. Minus, minus takes away 1, just like plus, plus, plus adds 1. Yeah, so enough of operators. Let's see. Then we have array types. Okay, so this is where things are going to get a little crazy here. Arrays. In some programming languages, these things are called lists. And in JavaScript, arrays or lists are different than from other programming languages in ways that we won't talk about much here. But basically, we are saying this is going to be, we're going to create a new list. We'll just call it an array. So we have the square brackets, and that is going to define our array, which is basically a list of different things. We can hold stuff in there. We can hold variables in there. We can hold all kinds of stuff in there. But we could say the number 8, the number 9, and the number 10. And so we can then console log. It's always a good idea to console log something if you're working with something new, because then it can help you get familiar with the data structure, what it looks like, what you're working with. If we log it out, it just looks like what we just wrote out.
Hey, Preston, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So you use constant to define this new mutable, or can you still append it somehow?
Oh, can we add to this array?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we can do that, and I could show that really quick. I don't want to get too much into that. We are going to be working in this week. We're not going to be working with like explicitly concatenating arrays or adding things to arrays. We're only going to be doing that using something called Jquery, and I am showing you all this so that you can kind of understand what's going on under the hood with Jquery. And then we will get into more basic level JavaScript like this, besides just the Jquery that we get into this week. But yes, we can actually add something to an array that is declared as a const for reasons that, once again, we won't get into. You can just say let if it helps you understand what's going on a little bit better. But basically, we can say new array. Well, first of all, let's do something really simple. So we have an array, and how would we get a number out of this array? How would we get the number 9 out of this array? Well, arrays are 0 indexed, meaning there is this thing called an index, which determines where we are in the array. And in this case, we have an array that has 3 things in it, 3 elements, and this first one is the 0th element. It starts at 0. This next one is the first, and this one is the second. So index 0, index 1, index 2. It's really confusing when you're first starting to work with this. You just kind of have to forget about it doesn't start at 1, it starts at 0. So arrays start at 0. So if I say array at 0, this is going to give me this new array, which is this variable. And then we're going to say, look inside this array for the 0th index, which is the first element of that array. So we can then console log it out. And what do we all think is going to happen when we do this?
8 will pop up.
Yep. So 8 is what is going to be logged out. And so anybody want to give me a guess as to how do we get 10?
2.
2.
Yes. So we are logging out the index, or the array at index 2, which is 10, the number 10. We can also say, we can mix stuff in there. We can say Brian, and we can say Sam. And it doesn't matter what order they're in. We can do all kinds of stuff. So we can just add anything willy-nilly into this array at different indices. So how would we get Sam? How would we log out Sam?
4.
So new array, open bracket, 4, close bracket. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that should be right. Sam, great. Okay, so this brings us to Sean's question. I don't want to get into this too much because you're not going to use this week. But we could say, if we wanted, we could just say, so we have 4, we have index 5. We could just say new array at 6 equals dog. And then we could log out the new array at 6. And that will give us dog. And then we can log out the array itself, which will now have that dog in it. This is not the way that we tell you guys or teach you guys to work with arrays, though. There are methods that we will use called new array dot push, and then we're just going to say dog. And if we do this again, then we will see that dog has been added to the end of the array again, because we added it once here, and then we added it once here. That's pushing it to the end of the array. But don't worry about that. This is to answer your question, Sean. And it doesn't matter if it's let or const. You can do that. But yeah, let's not worry too much about why that's the case. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these two because we're not going to use push for now. What we do need to remember is that there are arrays, there are numbers, there are strings, and inside an array, you can put anything in there. You can put an array, you can put a string, you can put numbers, you can put anything. Yeah, all right. So questions from that? What is the type of an array? Oops, where am I? I'm in the wrong spot. Okay, so anybody have any guesses as to what is going to be logged out here?
I would guess array.
You would think that that is what's logged out, but this is one of those weird things in JavaScript. It says object. This is not an object, it's an array. It is an object under the hood, and that's the reason why they say array. So if you really want to log out its type, you have to do this fun thing called array.isArray new array, or whatever you named your variable. You put the variable name inside this thing that is this array.isArray, and then you give it these parentheses. This will log out array. Well, no, this will not log out array, because see how it says is array? So it's either true or false. So in this case, it's going to be true because it is an array. So that's just one of those things that you're like, why JavaScript? Why did you do this to me? So then we have loops. This is the last one that I really wanted to get to, because you're going to use this in your weekly projects coming up soon. Loops can be quite perplexing when you first start JavaScript. Loops are basically we have this array, and we're just going to, for simplicity's sake, we're going to create an array with numbers that are 1 through 5, so that we can understand what's going on. So there's this thing called the for loop, and what it says is visit each and every one of these indices, visit each and every one of these elements, and do something every single time. So there's a lot going on here, but let's just check it out. So you're going to say for, so like kind of like for every time we do this, for let I, and see my editor wants to autocomplete here. So let I equals 0, and just follow along with me here. My nums.length, and then I plus plus, or we can say like that. So what this is saying is we're going to create this new variable. This we're familiar with, right? Let something equal something. This is a new variable. So let I, which is representing the index of the array, let I equal 0. It's just a number. As long as this number is less than the length of this array, increment the number, which seems silly, right? Like, why are we just doing nothing there? Well, we're not doing nothing. This is the thing that helps us move through this array. Then inside this, from this curly brace to this curly brace, we're going to do stuff. This is where you do stuff. This is where you define when you do stuff, and this is where you define what you're doing. So one quick and dirty thing that we can do is console log the thing. And how will we get the thing? That's a tough one. So we have this variable that's the index, and we have this array variable. How would we log out, say, on the first pass? How would we log out 1?
I.
So
That will log everything.
So this is one of the most confusing things about for loops when you first start it. So let's just try it. Let's run it. Oops, I made a mistake somewhere. I is not defined. Why is I not defined? Let I equals 0. Console log I. Why is this not like me? File JavaScript 1.1. Let's just do this. It's probably still going to give me the same error. No, I don't know why. That's very strange. I don't know what that error was all about, but let's try that again one more time. Yeah, I don't know what that error was. Pay no attention to the man behind the screen. This is logging out. Weird. We're starting at 0. Why would that be? I thought we would start at 1. Anybody have any guesses as to why this is logging out 0?
You gave the value of 0.
Right. Exactly. So sorry. Was that Patricia?
Yes, it was.
So what is this, Patricia? What is the I? Is it this in here?
No, it's the I plus the array.
So I, in this case, is this number here. It has nothing to do with these. We could call these cat, dog, whatever. It has nothing to do with these numbers there. These are just numbers. It's this number that we are incrementing on each pass. So what we are logging out is the index of the array, not the element in the array at that index. So the way that we would, like up here, we said new array at 0, and that gave us 8. How would we get cat in this case? How would we log out cat? What would we put in here?
Yeah, it would be my nums square bracket or then the I.
Exactly. Perfect. That's how you get the element itself. And this is something that trips up many, many people. It tripped me up in the very beginning. It trips up everybody. So don't feel bad if it's tripping you up. This happens to everyone. So my nums I represents the thing. I represents what position we are at. So it's a number because we have defined it as such, and we are saying make it more the next time. So we can see now we are, oh, let's get rid of this console log because otherwise it'll look confusing. So we are now logging out cat because that's the first element, 2 is the second element, dog, and so on and so forth. What I like to do in these for loops is say, so now I have this variable that's going to be my element because I just basically take that element from the array and save it in this variable in the very beginning, and then I'm going to log it out here. Then I can do stuff with that element. This is going to do the exact same thing because we didn't change anything about what's being logged out. Let's bring this back to numbers. OK, so we are console logging these numbers. So we're logging out these numbers 1 through 5. What if we do something like my element plus equals 1? Oops, that's going to give me an error. What happens if I run this? What are we going to see logged out? Like we had here, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My element is 1, then my element is 2, then my element is 3. Here on this line, we're saying my element plus equals 1, and then we're going to log out. Oops, go away.
Would that be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
Perfect. Yes, that is what we are doing. So down at the bottom, we'll see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because on each and every time, we are just incrementing that current element by 1, the number by 1. So let's do something a little bit more interesting. Let's just copy everything we have. Let's say my dogs. Dog names. Again, people's dogs' names.
Buck.
Buck. Any other names?
Barkley.
Barkley. Like the bank?
With an EY.
With an EY.
And a K. Like Barkley.
Like this. Oh, Barkley. Yeah. I love it. I love it. OK. One more.
Koya.
Oh, yes, Koya. Right? Like that? Was that what it was? No. I feel it was different. Yes, that is good. OK. All right. So we are going to, oh, this is kind of an interesting one. What will happen if we run this code as is? What will we, oops. Not that. That's not what I wanted. OK, I think we've set this up correctly. OK, so we have this array of dog names, they're strings. And we're trying to increment it by 1. What happens actually is something that's weird of JavaScript. What happens is we just append the number 1 to the end of the string. So it just becomes that string with 1 at the very end. That's just a quirk of JavaScript. So that's not really what we want to do here. We want to say, we're going to say says bark. And you can do this. This looks kind of weird, but you can say if you are using single quotes, you can then use double quotes inside the single quotes, and it'll print out the actual quotes. So, so what's going to happen when I run this?
Is it Yoda bark? Buck bark.
Yeah, so Yoda says bark, Buck says bark, Fido, because I had the says in there too. So, oops, no, says is not defined. Oh, wait, plus equals says bark? That's strange. Oh, right. I don't think, yeah, I don't think you can use plus equals with strings. I think that's why. I'm not sure why that is, but in any case, my element equals my element plus, and then add the string to it. So yes, so we're doing stuff like that. So you can do all kinds of crazy things with numbers. You can do things with strings. You can do whatever you want with that variable in here. And yeah, so that's what this is the primary what we're going to be working with on the in the workshop. So let's use one more example here. Let's see. Well, first of all, this is an array of how many elements?
5.
5, yes. So what is going to happen if I print out the length of the array? My catus. That's funny. My cats. This is a property on all arrays that you can say my cats dot length or my array dot length, and it'll give you the length of the array. So we just determined that it was 5. It should print out 5. And did I run it? Let's get rid of these console logs. Let's see. Okay, so it's 5. Now, really quick here, in this for loop, we are saying, so how would we get the last element? How would we get Koya out of this array? We already kind of went over this, but anybody have any guesses? How would we get Koya out of there? I know these are dogs. I'm like butchering all this by saying they're cats, but how would we get the last element out of this cats array? But we could just say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We could just say 4, and we could run that. Or there's this really cool trick. You can say, so we want to get 4 in there, right? If in order to get the last element of an array, you say my cat's dot length, which will be what? My cat's length is going to be what?
5.
Right. But is there anything at position 5?
No.
No, because it's
subtract
0.
1 from it.
Exactly. That's how we get the last element of an array. So we run this, and this should print out the same exact thing. Why did it not work? Oh, because I said length.
You misspelled length.
Length is misspelled.
Yes, misspellings are the source of so many bugs. Okay, so yes, this still works. So we could say length minus 2, blah, blah, blah. We hardly ever use anything except for length minus 1. And that is going to give us the end of the array, no matter how many things we have in there. We can do all that, and it's still going to be Koya, because that is the last element of the array. Whew, that was a lot. What questions does everybody have about what we went over just now? You're all JavaScript programmers, experts. Yeah, so was going to get into some of this, but I think we can save that for Tuesday, Thursday, because we're not going to actually end up using those things until later on in this week. So watch the pre-work videos. Those videos are excellent. Matt Short is the one who recorded those. He's the guy who's been writing all of this curriculum, and he knows a heck of a lot about JavaScript. Most of what we go over in those videos is called Jquery. Jquery is this cool thing that does cool stuff with the DOM. I could demo it for you, but he demos it great for you. So what it does is stuff like this: for loops, working with variables and stuff like that, but with the DOM. So like with CSS, with elements in your HTML document, stuff like that. So it's gonna get really crazy, but like really cool, really quick. Y'all are gonna be like, whoa, I didn't know we could like manipulate the DOM with this little $sign, which is jQuery. So yeah, any questions about that or what's coming up in the near future?